This is so exciting. I can't wait to see what they're gonna show for us for the spring test realm.
As icons have been introduced to the game, as new actions and effects have been introduced to the game, our little card space is pretty small, and there's a lot of complexity that goes into the effects. So it's been requested for a while to have an alternative way to view your spells in order to get more information on them, see the definition of them, be able to understand them easier. So with this spring update, we introduced Spell Inspect, which is a way to examine a specific spell, and in this case, you will be able to see more definitions, more information on what the icons do, what the actions do, and be able to understand what each of the spells in your deck do. So this feature is integrated into most menus where you can view a spell, the most obvious one being the spell deck. This feature works on every spell, and by default, it is going to show the description of the spell in more detail when you right-click on it.
Wow. I thought that they were just going to do the ones that have like the icons on them. I mean, technically every spell does have an icon on it, but I think we know that this means death damage. But hey, if they did it for every spell, that's awesome too. That's just crazy, but it's awesome.
So Cam, if you could right click on a spell, it's a new menu layer, so you can't interact with anything around while this is open, but you can interact with things on the menu. So in this case, you're seeing the same description that is on the spell, which is how it is by default. But now you can hover your mouse over specific icons in that lower description and you'll see the definition.
That's good. I'm glad they explained that because I was thinking it just says the exact same thing. All right, awesome. Keep going.
Of what that icon is. Both death and damage are pretty simple, so they don't have any more information than that. You can pretty much intuit what they are from that. But certain icons and effects will describe what the actual effect is in that tooltip. So with the spring update, this is going to be on the novice spells to start. And so as you can see, you can right click on one of these novice spells. The path Bs, I should specify the ones that have more effects on them. And you can see a custom description to this spell. So this gives you some more information. You can see, just like the other one, you have your basic ice damage at the top. And then it goes into a bit of more of what the second effect does, the clear. When you hover over clear, then you can see what clear actually does.
I love that. It's not that clear doesn't make any sense, but some of the other words that they use, like echo and gambit, unless you're familiar with certain things like chess, you may not know what gambit means. So I'm glad that you can hover over the exact thing that maybe you're confused on, and you can clearly see clear is remove hanging effect that benefits the target for an effect that benefits the caster. I think that's pretty good because you know what a target is, you know what a caster is. They're not using in-house terminology, for game devs only. Basically, I'm saying that they're using the layman terms, which thank you. Not everyone knows all of your awesome terminology.
This one, there's even less than we can display on the card because 3 different things are happening. You've got 3 different types of damage to apply. You've got 2 different echoes. So here it just lays it all out. You're dealing damage with life, ice, and balance damage. And then you have 2 different echo effects. So first it's going to do...
I'm not sure about the wording here because it says count if the target has hanging effects for hanging effect that benefits the caster. I don't think it's even supposed to be counter. It should be like copying the same type of effect. It doesn't give you the exact one.
You're not going to see one of these full-on descriptions for Fire Cat, for example, because that's pretty intuitive just with the default description and knowing what the icons do.
So that's good because they were saying like, okay, well, we're not going to have an expanded description for, just say Fire Cat. Well, that's fine, but if it's the Spellement upgraded version, it does use a lot of the icons. Maybe people aren't too novice yet, but they do have an upgraded Fire Cat or Sunbird or whatever and still want to know what those do, but it's a little bit confusing. So I'm glad that they are going to be doing those. I think that any of the ones that have a lot of features and icons, I definitely think that those should be done before the rest that are just damage or like this. You don't need a really description right now for adding 150 to 1 healing spell. We kind of figured that one out.
So this right click feature is, like I said, usable in most spell menus. You've got it here, you've got it on your main spell writing page, so you can get more info before you upgrade your cards.
Nice. Oh, that's perfect.
And then there's just a few places where it's not used. So like here, for example, when you can't right click here, but you can click into the other page and right click on that menu.
Makes sense.
It's also not usable during combat. And right clicking in combat is the discard function. So we didn't want to take that and change it when so many people have the muscle memory to right click in combat to discard a card.
Yeah, that would be really bad. Like, oh, hey, I want to know what this does. Oops, I just discarded. But I totally get it. It's the same thing with Beast Moon, because Beast Moon is basically a trainer for these advanced features. So it's the same way that you can look at the Beast Form kiosk, where you can see all the different spells and see what they do before it. I love the fact that they only have this at times in which you're not doing battle, because once you understand what the card does, then you can better set up your deck to utilize all of those effects. And you're not going to be able to do that in a battle anyway.
And I also want to note that while this is something that is happening now in spring, this is not meant to take the place of a proper tutorialization of all of these features. So there are still going to be updates to the help pages to add these icons and to explain these actions more. We've had a lot of requests for more advanced combat tutorials and be able to onboard people to that. So just note that this is a supplemental thing to help you understand the effects in relation to your specific cards, but it is not meant to replace some broader onboarding that will happen in the future.
That is amazing. Because I know a lot of people are only thinking later game stuff, okay? Novus, Wallaroo, but you realize that these spells, your rank 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Rank 1 spells are your very first spells you get. You can start getting spellements to potentially upgrade them to the versions that have these effects. And so I think that's when the tutorial needs to be. It's not an end game sort of thing. It needs to be much sooner. As soon as you are able to get enough spellements to upgrade a spell, then I think that there should be no problem. Like the end of Crocotopia, how about that? That's when somebody will say, hey wizard, we see that you've got this stuff, so let me show you how to use these so that you can get the most out of what you're doing right now with that. I think that'll be perfect. In my opinion, giving players a tutorial, I don't know, even like Polaris level, it's too late, because there's a lot of people who already have them like maxed out. That doesn't mean they know all of the intricacies of the different paths. Maybe they just went to the damage one because they didn't understand what the rest of it did and didn't know how you can best use those.
I see folks have noticed the dot changes.
Does that mean this is creating 2 dots?
So this fire spell includes the dot updates that have been mentioned a couple times in some of the side streams in Discord.
DOT updates, do tell.
We needed to try to predict the amount of dot value being removed per removal action from the opponent. And at first we were using protection, but protection isn't granular enough to handle maintaining some sort of control over that.
No offense, but this is what I'm talking about. Like granular, I have no idea what that means. I mean, if you're trying to explain to me why you're making certain changes, like that makes no sense to me. I don't know what that means.
So we can either display the value of each overtime or display the total damage potential of both overtimes together and try to indicate that they are 2 separate dots.
So is that saying 860, does that mean 2 dots at 430 each? Now I'm confused.
And we decided to go that way because, well, it saves people having to do the math. Right, 2 dots, 430 each.
Okay.
Over 5 rounds.
Now, I know they're saying they're trying not to confuse us and do math, but to me, that's like the opposite. They should just say how much each dot is. I mean, it does say 860 with 2 overtimes, so... But see, then you're still having to do math in your head because it's divided by 5, so whatever.
Shouldn't need it, right? For most of the spells, as soon as you get familiar with the terms and the icons, you shouldn't really need to dive in here, except for the ones that are super complicated, like scales or some of the others that are kind of goofy.
Now, I will say, playing Player's Advocate, you design these and you've been working with these for a long time. Some people are still new to them. It will take people a little while to know what they mean. So just remember that, please.
Because we're doing more with spells and things, kind of wanted to just move more to keywords and icons. And so this is just a way to teach you the icons, teach you the nomenclature, and then for the most part, you should be able to start to understand better and more easily what the spells do.
There you go. Thank you for saying it that
The
way.
function of using iconography in games is, and all around the world, is that an icon, if you know what it means, is faster to read than a word. Like, it is faster in my level of understanding to look at that storm icon and know that it's storm rather than reading the word storm.
Let's look at Frost Giant, shall we? We haven't talked about AoEs yet. For Path Bs on AoEs, we're doing a new type of effect that is similar to divided damage, but not as steep of a drop-off, where it's called Select a Target or something like that, and we'll have an icon for it. That it wasn't ready for this presentation yet. This number you see here is how much it'll do to one target, and if you select 2 targets, it'll do a little bit less, and then a little bit less for 3 and a little bit less for 4. This one, it does damage, and then it clears up to 5 blades for universal traps. Path A, of course, is just more damage, so I mean, I'm sure PvE Ice Wizards would like to have over 500 damage instead of 460 on the top.
This is going to be multi-target, right? Select target?
Yep.
Which means we can select up to 4 targets with this. And as you select additional targets, the damage goes down. It is an AoE spell, technically, but it's a new category of spell that we're calling Selected Target. And we have an icon for that, it's just not integrated yet. So when you have a spell that is Selected Target like this, you can choose 1, 2, 3, or 4, and the effect drops off as you have more of them. It is not strictly divided the way that it was before, like on Iron Sultan.
So wait, he said that the effect drops off? You mean this Clara charm for a trap drops off? The more individuals that you're targeting, the less the damage. I got that. But there is an effect. So don't say that the effect is dropping off.
We were able to get that. It's about 75% per target from the base number.
Right.
Yeah.
That's not too bad, 75%. Better
Folks
than
in chat
1/4.
making
You can also enchant these with your Sun Enchant spells to increase the damage, which will of course be affected by the lowering of the damage, the more creatures that you're hitting.
The other question is, yeah, that condition is per target. So if you have 4 targets, each with 5 blades, it will clear up to 20.
That's 20. 10 pip ones are the fun ones. So this was another way that we were thinking of giving you value that isn't straight damage, but could lend itself to more combo plays.
It sounds like too many pips. Well, I'm just saying, you go from a full rack to a full rack. Is that how it goes?
Pretty much,
I knew
yeah.
we were.
But of course they have to have the weakness on them.
Yeah, I guess this is a good time to mention that everything is subject to change.
Here's the thing though, you have to gambit the weakness, which means removing the weakness to get those pips. As playing my Death Wizard and loving the boost that you get for having a weakness when using Monster Mash, if you're using just a straight up weakness, those are nigh on impossible to get the bonus on, because if the target even thinks about hitting you, the weakness is gone. Same thing with this one. And you're probably thinking, well, I'm going to stack them. I'm going to put a weakness. I'm going to put a plague. I'm going to put a virulent plague. Okay, well, one hit from the target gets rid of all of those. This one is not as easy to use as you would think. Plus, if they know that you have this spell, woo-wee. However, if you can get this thing to work, oh my gosh, yes. I mean, technically, you could use this where the caster boosts this up with the Sun Enchant spell, and then you have 3 people in front of you all casting weaknesses before the targets can use it, ba-boom. But you really gotta get it going on just for this one.
It gives you power pips per hot on yourself while still doing a lot of damage. All of the rank 10s have this pip gain,
which I really love, because I never use the 10, 11 pip spells because it's a waste of my time. Honestly, I could boost up a 6, 7 damage spell and then have some extra pips left over to possibly do it again in the time it takes me to get the pips and the setup for a 10 or 11 pip spell.
It hits first, and then it gives you a pip back for every shield that the opponent has left, up to 6.
We're still trying to dial in on Balance's identity exactly. We know they deal with pips, so that's why this one makes sense.
Yep.
We know that they're about leveraging existing board states versus creating their own. Things like Echo, or in this case, they're not removing shields, they're just sort of leveraging the shields, but the opponent has to make them.
See, like this creation and leveraging and stuff, why don't you just say they're copying it or mirroring it? Something like that.
That is 1350 split into 3 dots over 6 rounds. Dots go to 6 rounds now?
Okay, good. I'm glad they said that because I'm like, 3 overtime, 6 what? Well, the icon's too small, but if they could, they should just do a little clock with a number on it. That way they wouldn't need the clock and the number. But anyhow.
And then an additional dot per hot on yourself.
So someone asks if it's protected. No, we're moving away from protected.
That's interesting. Now, it may just be me, but the way they're talking about like how people are going to be using this spell, it kind of, to me, seems like they're more thinking PvP as opposed to PvE. And I don't PvP, so my mindset is always, okay, how can I use these best against creatures, doing soloing, bosses, things like that.
Will dot animation time be addressed? We're looking into it.
Yeah, we're looking into it.
That is clear 5 negative charms for 50% chromatic traps.
I do not like that chromatic.
Already shaking his head.
Is it
What?
colored? I can't even tell. I prefer the
Indeed.
chromatic being the spiral. It's
Yeah,
easier to
it's
see than that. It's like, is that a crown? What is that thing? Don't forget, we need to be able to actually see the icon to understand what it is.
Which spells will be trainable?
We could go talk to Cyrus and find out. Cyrus, I want to learn Myth King art. Okay, well, it doesn't show here because I already have it, but yes, it'll be here as well as the others.
So everything's trainable or what?
And as you can see by the requirements, it is a chain all the way up. But the school that you are on will get it first. So Medusa, for instance, is a level 58 spell for myths, but other schools can train it at 62, and that's continues.
That's kind of cool.
The primary school still learns it through the quest. The primary school's experience stays the same, right?
Yep.
Good. I'm glad they're not taking those away.
2,000 over 5. Of course, this is for single target. And clear traps on, this is the first that we're showing of the selected target friendly. So obviously that the heal over time number will go down, but you can clear traps on your allies for blades, universal blades on them, and a lot of heal. There's been very limited ways to clear traps off of your allies, so this will be helpful. All right, so you wanted to show Thieving Dragon as well?
Damage 375 and then clear a positive aura for a. Is that a 70 universal?
I think
Or
it's
is that a
actually.
70 chromatic?
I think it's supposed to be chromatic. It looks like I missed one. So.
Okay, that's all right. There you go.
Exposed.
Yeah, so basically, Ice is Thieving Dragon. It clears an aura for a 70 chromatic shield.
Quite a
And
bit
then
better
we're-
than the top path, I believe.
Hey, I find stealing a ward is quite nice, especially with those rotten creatures that like to shield too much for my poor Ice.
Trying to help Ice out a little bit.
Yep.
Then raise the damage.
Pointed out because attempting to integrate auras a little bit more into the magic field.
Auras. I'm like, ours?
It's already there a little. Like Storm has, Stormwing, and Life has, Sacred Charge?
Yep.
And so then Storm, Life, and Death?
Death. Yep.
Yeah, so Star School, has auras, so it makes sense.
Death has an aura spell. You talking about Crimson? Crimson Phantom? I thought that was a global. Stormwing gives an aura, but I don't know what Death one they're talking about, because if they're talking about
that's
Crimson
pretty cool.
Phantom, that's
Awesome.
a global.
Can max levels farm for the spellements? Yes.
Yay!
And we're adding a little time to the raid, a little time up front. We talked to some of the community folks about simple changes to make the raid a bit more accomplishable. The Arc 2 spellements will be integrated into the Arc 2 raid, Crying Sky. The way the rematches work, the rewards you get that you don't get from doing it from world bosses. One is that you'll get access to a different gear template. And then the second one is that each rematch only drops the spellements of the world spells that correspond to that rematch. So what you may see in volume is the same number of spellements, but the additional value you're getting is controlling or influencing probability of what you're getting.
That's good. So if you're doing a rematch for a boss that drops rank 6 spells, you're not going to get the rank 1, 2, 3, probably even 4 spells in that. But you're going to get dropped the same amount. That's good. I'm for it.
We added some Path Bees to some of the event spells.
Beastman spells.
All the golems got a Path Bee to align better with identity. So instead of all of them making shields, they will have optionally able to make something that aligns with their school's identity, as opposed to them all being the same.
Okay.
More or less the same.
Okay. That's cool. I want to see that.
I think one thing I'd like to discuss with the dev team is the idea maybe of having some of the higher tier spellements have different level requirements than the lower tier versions. That's something that might help lower level leagues a little bit more. And since Artie was asking about lower level PvP leagues just today, that's something we might discuss.
So, because of possible lower level PvP, you won't be able to use those spells in PvE if you're not the level for PvP? I'm confused because as someone who never PvPs, I'm not for punishing PvE players with that, especially if it's two different paths, because I almost always pick the path that gives you something which is advanced combat usable. I would not be for having to be a higher level just to use it. Interesting.
But I will restate what Artie just said, which is that we actually, despite appearances, we actually prefer not to ban things if we can avoid doing that.
But technically you're not banning it if you're just raising the level that you need to be to train it, to learn it. So, interesting.
We're using Mirror Lake as an example, but this will be in many more locations. If you are above the level, say like this character is 170, he's gone through all the things. If you want to farm Mirror Lake, there will be a special thing that will look differently than this.
Scales of knowledge.
Scales of knowledge. You interact, you get your scale down to 70, so all your stats go down with it, and your spells are restricted as well. Right here you have an elixir, where while you have this on, you are able to get any drops that any lower level would have gotten. So that includes spellements, gear, and that kind of stuff.
What it'll end up being is there'll be an interactable that will look the same in every world where it's needed. You click on it, make you the level appropriate for a certain time period using the elixir, and you'll have a certain time period and then you can just go back and refresh it. And I think, Cam, if you click on it again, doesn't it remove the elixir or no?
Yeah, you can remove it at any time.
Yeah.
Hopefully it's like regular elixirs and then you just right click them to be able to get rid of it.
You're here to kind of help a friend through a quest.
You don't have to put it on.
You don't have to put it on, or if you have it on and you're wanting you're wanting to help on some team ups or something, you can cancel it and then go back about your business or whatever.
Yep.
And then just come back and do it again. So.
It doesn't cost anything, completely free.
Yay!
The reason we did it this way, instead of...
Well, now, don't laugh because it says it's an elixir, and elixirs are almost never free.
When you get in is because we wanted it to be opt-in, so you know what's happening to you because you have to go up and click on it. And also, for those people who are helping their lower friends, carry them through if they want, they can still do that. And yes, it's in Arc 1 as well.
The elixir stays on you, right?
Yep, so you can do a couple runs. It's an hour, so you'll have to refresh it every hour, but someone mentioned it's like the museum elixir, which it is very similar to the museum one.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm not sure if he's going to open up his spell deck, but it would be great if like the spells that you couldn't use because you lowered your level were grayed out because you just couldn't use them. I know they have the little number on there of what level can use it, but it would just be so much handier if they just grayed it out. You couldn't even use it.
A lot of people are asking when test is. It's soon.
Soon TM. All right, see some teaser for Beast Moon. They already teased the Ice Piggy. All right. Storm Cyclops. Nice. Look at those spells. So it gives a minus 50 to damage, negative aura. So it's a weakness aura for 2 rounds. Nice. It's not too long in case it gets cast on you. Lovely 0 pips. And then Dogs of Storm does 150 damage for 2 pips or much more damage if they have an aura, which is nice because it doesn't remove it, it doesn't change it. It would be nice to have a spell where if they had an aura, it just changed it to a negative. That would be fun too because I love playing with this stuff in Beast Moon. Love it. I am excited. How about you? I'm just loving absolutely everything that they're saying. They're giving us more ways to learn about the icons, what they mean, how best to utilize them. And we got at least a couple new beast forms for spring. The Storm Cyclops and the Ice Piggy, and we're gonna have the ability to lower our level so that it's appropriate for the world, so any of our wizards can farm in them, as long as you're there or past it, obviously. There's no scaling up, sorry, that would just be weird. Then nobody would ever even play the game. And we have the 7, 8, 9, and 10 rank spells, nice, that you can get spellements for in those appropriate worlds for Arc 2. Wonderful. Yay, Morganth Saga Spellman Pack. Yes. And they didn't show anything with the Monstrology yet. Maybe we'll get a teaser. They did say that Test Realm is going to be soon, TM. When I checked, last year's was a little bit after the middle of the month. So this upcoming week is the 11th through the 15th. It might start then, or it might start the 18th through the 22nd. That kind of seems a little bit more plausible, especially since that's the week before KI Live, so we'll see. And of course they don't run it on the weekends. So what do you think? What are you most excited for? When do you think they're gonna have a spring 2024 Test Realm? I'm so excited! Woohoo! Thanks for checking this out, and we'll see you soon, raccoons!